All right. So today this is kind of something I wanted to talk about because this update pretty much happened like a week or two ago, and I didn't really get to talk about it. And I'm talking about the PTB for the 9.3.0 update. And the reason I wanted to talk about this was because I've just been seeing a lot of people really saying that like DBD's cooked. They don't know, like, this update's gonna screw the game over, and like they don't know what they're doing and stuff like that. Um, and I kind of just wanted to talk about it because, in my opinion, from what I've read about these changes, it's not really the worst thing ever. Like, it's not good. I'll admit that it's not good, but like, I'm not like everyone else where I'm gonna say that like the game's cooked, or like the devs need to like just stop. They need to just stop trying. Like, I'll explain it, but I do think that this update does hold some worth to it. So let's real quickly start with the tunneling reduction update, since that's the first thing on the list here. And a lot of the changes that will be coming is, for example, whenever you get unhooked, you're going to be receiving 30 seconds of haste and 30 seconds of endurance instead of 10 seconds like it is in the normal game right now. They're also bringing back the elusive effect, which is something they tested out during the Creusus PTB, which is the effect that like hides your grunts of pain or scratch marks and all that stuff, and also like if you're infected by a killer, you don't cough or vomit. Basically, just trying to make it so you essentially just disappear without that effect that it did in that PTB, where you actually disappear, because that was something that was in that PTB where you would lose collision and you would literally disappear, so nobody could find you. You also will be able to see the killer's aura from 32 meters for 10 seconds. You don't get affected with AFK crows, because if you're getting unhooked and you're trying to hide, AFK crows might spawn if you're just standing there like hiding, not really moving. But some of the things as well is that survivors will still be susceptible to like the powers and stuff. So like you can still get like shot by a deathslinger or hit with a hunter's axe or a spring trap axe, or what have you. Like, you'll still be able to get hit by these things, and a lot of these effects and stuff will go away the moment you're healed, or they'll be lost if you do a conspicuous action like doing gens and what have you. And whenever all gens are done, these effects are just disabled for the rest of the end game, which does make sense, because it's the same mentality that they had with the anti camp system being removed during the end game, where like they don't want you to be able to just disappear. Like, the killer, they want to give the killer every fighting chance they have to get at least one kill if they're in that situation. So it being disabled during when all the gens are completed is nice, but they are still at least giving you the endurance and haste for 10 seconds like we currently have in DBD. Except, like I said, it's only going to happen when all the gens are done. So if you're at one gen, you'll get 30 seconds of it, and if you are done with all the gens, it's only 10 seconds. Now, here's the thing, is for the killer side, they actually do keep they actually are bringing back the bonuses that they were trying to bring from the original update back during the Creusus PTB. Such as, like you will get Bloodlust for 15 seconds, Bloodlust 1, every time you hook somebody different, which is nice. I don't understand why they had to make it specifically Bloodlust. Like, you could have just given me that same amount of haste for 15 seconds. Like, just tell me how much haste it is, which I'm pretty sure it's only like a 5% difference. But yeah, so essentially it's like you're gonna get Bloodlust tier 1 for 15 seconds, and it does reset that timer whenever you start a chase with somebody else, or whenever all the gens and stuff are done. And you will get an additional bonus blood points for each time you hook somebody, and that's it. Like, there's no like, oh, you have to hook them and get at least like 6 hooks before somebody dies. Like, none of that stuff is here. So like, people are really complaining about this, but the crazy thing about it is, like I said, it's like there's no downsides to it like there was in the last one. Like, yeah, there is a lot more upsides for the survivor. So survivor is going to be a lot stronger than the killer in this. But as long as you're just not playing like a total like tunneling killer, then you just hook people individually, you're still getting these bonuses. So I don't know. I don't see why everyone's really complaining about this, because the way I see it is that it's literally just doing what it's trying to do, which is to stop tunneling after getting unhooked. And the one thing I will say that I will admit is that people did say this, is that there is some killer powers that did say won't work under certain conditions. Like, for example, Pinhead's ability apparently just won't work anymore if the elusive effect is happening, or even if you just have the endurance effect. He just can't use his power. They just don't get affected by chains at all, which I do think is stupid. I don't really understand that, because what's the point of saying that everything is affected by killer powers after you get unhooked still, but then Pinhead's entire power doesn't work on somebody that gets unhooked? Like, that just does seem kind of stupid to me. Um, but other than that, I think the rest of the changes are fine. And they did also change stuff regarding the like anti-camp stuff. Like, they did essentially make it so, like, they did basically make it so the bar does go faster and faster the longer somebody is up on a hook. And they also, added like the bar, so that way, other survivors can see if you're getting camped, and stuff like that, essentially. So and they are also reducing the amount of time it takes to get AFK crows, I guess, so people can't just hide around all game. So, but I don't know, I just think these unhooking changes, while the Pinhead stuff is stupid, and while there is some other stuff that I think they could tweak just a little bit more, I think it's fine. I really do think it's fine, because it is trying to, just give people that mentality of they need to just go for other people, because the person that just got unhooked is just not tunnelable anymore. You can't chase this person until you go for somebody else. And, this has been an argument for, years, and, I've seen this argument because I've talked about this on other videos before. But again, it's like, if you're struggling to find other people, you're struggling to chase other people, so you're trying to tunnel somebody out, that's how you learn, though. Like, to me, that's just how you learn to play the game, is just by going against these better players. And if you're just refusing to go against these better players and only go for the weaker people, just tunnel them out and get free kills, there's no point to trying to learn, because you're just never gonna learn. And there's also like the comp people that, like, try to tunnel somebody out at 5 gens, and then and then they just go one by one to each other person. So I'm glad that they are taking more account into this, and I do like that there's just straight up no downsides as killer, because I did think the downsides of needing to get 6 hooks before somebody dies was really fucking specific and really stupid. And of course there are going to be some other perk changes and stuff that change following this update and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I just think it's going to be really good, because I feel like it's going to add just a whole nother layer of gameplay, since people are actually going to be able to get unhooked, be able to reset, and actually be able to play the game, instead of getting unhooked and then the killer comes back and then the chase just starts up again. You can actually take a minute to prepare yourself for later. And there is some perks that are going to be changed and stuff, and some of them are a little weird. Like, I remember one of the perks that they were going to change was Wicked, which basically makes it so when you get unhooked, or if you get hooked in the basement, you can unhook yourself for free. But they were going to buff it so that way you also heal a portion of your health, which was really stupid when you applied something like Resurgence to it, and you pretty much were full health when you unhooked yourself from the basement. So hopefully that type of stuff doesn't go into live. But I think the changes here for the unhooking stuff is really not that bad. Like, I really just don't think it's that bad, because it literally gives that person that's getting tunneled, or that person that gets hooked first, like, because the one of the strongest things to me is playing killer in DBD is getting that first hook very early on, because that kind of just determines how the rest of the match is gonna go for me. So it actually gives that person that gets hooked first the actual fighting chance, and people aren't just gonna say, oh, the game's over, we lost, this person got hooked instantly, it's over. So I do like these changes. Like I said, they're not the greatest things ever, they're still a little dumb, but I do think that these changes are leagues better than what they were trying to do in the Crusoe's PTB. The next thing I wanted to quickly get into is the slugging reduction update, because they are still trying to bring this back. And one of the things that they're doing is it takes 120 seconds, so you have to wait 2 minutes on the ground for the resolve bar, which is the same bar that's used on the anti-camp meter, just that little extra bar. After 2 minutes, that bar will completely fill, and the progress doesn't actually reset between downs. So if you get picked up and then downed again, you'll still be at whatever progress you had. And yeah, after 2 minutes, you'll be able to pick yourself up. And some of the things that they're changing with this compared to the original version is, for example, every time somebody gets downed, for each person that's downed, it's actually going to fill up faster. Kind of like Desperate Measures from Felix. It's kind of like that, but just for slugging. Like, every time somebody goes down, it's going to fill up by an additional 33%. And, like I said, once the bar fills up, they'll be able to pick themselves up. And, they also did increase the crawling speed again, which means that, yes, they're going to change tenacity as well. But like I said, like, I really don't think it's that bad, because there's not, like, there's not a lot of situations, in my opinion, where, you're going to be having more than, like, 2 people slugged at a time. Because most of the time what happens is you down one person, you see somebody in the distance trying to go for a save, you chase them, down them, pick them up, hook them, and then go back to the person that you were slugging. So I think that's, like, the only situation where I feel like this is going to work. Because like I said, like, unless you're literally playing, like, a slugging Leatherface that just goes for, like, 4 people, or you're just trying to run, like, an a slugging build on Killer, there's never going to be a situation where you're going to just casually have 4 people down on the ground. And the only way I feel like people would abuse this is if they did something like, run, like, plot twist, and then 4 people plot twist, and then everyone just picks themselves up quicker. That's the only situation I can really see that being a little bit busted. But because it does essentially just give 4 people, like, free resets. But I don't think it's really that bad, like I said, because like I said, it's just another thing of, like, people just need to learn how to deal with these other players. So if somebody goes down and you see somebody at the distance, you have to make that decision if you're just going to pick up and go for it, or if you're actually going to go for that person, and then the guy that's down potentially picks themselves up. To me, that's just learning. That's just learning how to how to multitask with different things. Like, it's not all about trying to slug all 4 people. Like, you need to learn how to, leave one person on the ground, pressure these other people, and then come back and pick this person up. Like, it's just a matter of multitasking. But when I say multitasking, I don't mean trying to kill all 4 people and down the wall at once. Like, just simply trying to down one person and then trying to micromanage with the other people just makes more sense to me. And yeah, that's mostly it when it comes to those changes, like the tunneling and the slugging changes. And like I said, they are slightly changing, like, the way anti-camp works and stuff like that. And like I said, they did buff the hell out of Skull Merchant, which to me, when I played her in the PTB, she seemed fine. She seemed more playable. Like, she was a lot, like, the drones felt a lot more useful, and I can actually use them both in and out of chase. But I think it's still just the fact that it's Skull Merchant, and Skull Merchant's just not that good of a killer anymore. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, I was also just surprised that these changes came out. I really thought that it was gonna be like, I really thought we were just gonna have to wait till next year to get her rework. So it is nice that they actually did, like, get temporary, like, they're just doing the same thing to me that they did to Myers, where they buffed him for a few months and then they gave him a rework. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they're doing here with Skull Merchant. So down the line, like, next year, we're most definitely going to see her rework, like, pretty early on. But the buffs that they gave her are pretty nice. Like, they're really not that bad. They're fine. And other than that, I mean, like, yeah, it's mostly just perk changes revolving to compensate for the slugging and the tunneling changes. Syringes and Syptics got nerfs, which is, like, it's a mixed feeling, because well, I don't think that syringes and Syptics were as overpowered or as, like, crazy as people made them out to be. It made sense that they had to be nerfed at some point, because those were, like, the last remnants of how dumb DBD has been for the last couple years. Like, the syringe being able to just heal you over, like, a couple seconds, and being able to go faster depending on healing perks literally made it so the syringe would take, like, 3 seconds to heal you. And the Syptic was essentially just, like, another dead hard that you can use in a chase for free. So, like, as I don't think that they were as crazy as they were, because I never really even used them. I was never somebody to use, like, syringes or anything. But I do understand why these had to be nerfed for the game's sake, because they really did just, they really were just kind of an annoyance more than anything. And all they really do now is they simply just made it so the syringe just removes exhaustion. So essentially, like that perk, the one Renato perk that does like the similar thing, Blood Rush, where it removes like your exhaustion at the cost of you being injured. It's kind of the same thing, except like there's no penalty. You literally just pop it and you just lose exhaustion. Now, do I think that this is a great change? No, because it's already been proven numerous times, and I can already think of all the scenarios of people popping this just so they can have like 2 sprint bursts in one chase, or something stupid like that. Like it's not the greatest change ever, but I mean it's still something. I really wish that they could just like I want it to be more focused on healing, but I don't want it to be like a free heal. But I also just think that all it does is remove exhaustion. I still think that that's just kind of weird. Like, I wouldn't have even minded if they made it so instead of healing you fully, it like healed you like 3/4 of the way or something. So that way you just have to heal the rest of yourself up, and stuff like that. And especially the fact that it still consumes the med kit completely. So it's like, is it really worth bringing this with a med kit, like a purple med kit or something, if the med kit's gonna disappear and all you're getting is a lost exhaustion for one time in the game? Like, that just doesn't really make sense to me personally. But I mean, it's like I said, it's still fine. It's still better than it was in terms of like it being nerfed. I think it's still better, but I think they could have just done a little bit more than just simply remove exhaustion. And the Siptic isn't really that much better. All it really does is there's no endurance effect, but this one also does not consume your medkit, so you can still use this without, you know, your medkit disappearing. But it does increase the efficiency when healing yourself. So essentially, what that means is that you equip the Siptic, and essentially the medkit will last longer because of you using it. So essentially it's kind of like another version of like, because there's other add-ons and perks and stuff like like botany knowledge, which increases like medkit efficiency. It's essentially like that, but in an add-on. So that one I think is fine, honestly, because like I said, it doesn't consume your medkit. I think that they do need to look at the syringe again, because I just think that just to remove exhaustion and it makes your medkit disappear, I think that's still kind of dumb. But I mean, these two add-ons, being changed, like, fine, like, sure, they have been an annoyance in DBD for years, even ever since they got reworked. They've been an annoyance for years. So, like, whatever. And then it like I said, it's mostly just been like small changes, like they increased like blood points for doing like certain actions. They did actually change the underground complex, or Hawkins, which I did go to in one of my streams where I played the PTB, and it's not that much different for the most part. The only part that's majorly different is the portal room, because that one god window got nerfed, and they also added a second way to get upstairs from it, which is fine. It's cool, whatever. They also did change Auto Haven, which at first I was shocked about. And when you go into when I went into the PTB, the only one that they changed for now was Gas Heaven, and that's because they were just experimenting. It wasn't something that was going to be in the game. They directly said that this was going to be something that they were going to just, experiment with, see what the feedback was, and, go from there. And my personal opinion on it was that it really wasn't that bad. It literally just brought back the old Auto Haven design, because it really was that old Auto Haven design where the Gas Heaven was in the middle of the map, and then there was the giant car walls that were like ramping around the map, and like there were all the tiles in between. It really wasn't that bad. I actually did like it, but they did also change the way the lighting and the textures and stuff worked to quote unquote improve visual clarity, which I didn't really think there was a problem with the visual clarity of Auto Haven in general, especially with the new gamma slider, because you crank the gamma slider to max and you could pretty much see everything on the map. So I didn't really think there was a major change to it, but playing on it, I mean, it was fine. I didn't really notice a difference. It kind of just looked a lot more yellowish green rather than like full on green, compared to like normal Auto Haven, but I still think it was fine. I didn't mind the layout. The map did feel a bit smaller, but like I said, I think it was fine. I think they, like, if they're gonna do this with all the Auto Haven maps, they should probably like, take a bit more time with it, because I don't want them to just do what they did with this map, where they shrink it slightly, change the way it's designed, and then change the lighting and stuff and call it a day. But I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay for what it was. And that's basically it for the most part. Other than that, it's mostly just like bugs and stuff like that. So the real thing that I wanted to say is, because like I said, like I said at the start of this video, a lot of people are really hating on this, and a lot of people are saying that DBD's cooked because of this. Now, my personal opinion on this is I think DBD is fine where it is, and I still think that even after this change comes out, nothing major is going to change. Sure, there might be like a switch in perks here and there, or a switch in builds, or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, like, everyone's just gonna complain about it. Like, everyone's just gonna do what they always do, where they complain about it for the first like 2 weeks it drops, and then they're just gonna move on because they're just gonna accept that this is DBD now. Like, and when it comes to the tunneling and slugging changes, like I said, that is literally just a matter of you need to just get better at playing this game. If you're not willing to learn and play, and deal with these changes, I really just think that's just a matter of you need to just learn how to play killer better. Because yeah, like, as much as people, as I hate to say it, it's like, I think it just makes sense that you hook one person and go for a completely different one, and the game is benefiting you for doing that. So why people just simply refuse to deal with that, I have no idea. Even the people that I see that don't really tunnel are still complaining about that. I really just don't understand it. So I don't know, that's just my opinion though. Like, I really do think that while this isn't going to be one of the greatest updates for DBD, I do think this is going to help the game drastically in, like, matches being extended for a longer period of time, and people actually being able to, like, play the game. Like, it's not going to be like one person dies and then the game ends within like 3 minutes. Like, the game is actually going to be able to last for a full like 10 to 12 minutes, which I'm pretty sure is like the average time for an average DBD game. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, I do think that these changes will definitely bring some good things. It's definitely going to bring a little bit of problems if they just throw the update out as is. So hopefully they do change a lot of stuff by the time it drops. But yeah, I think it's going to be fine. I really do think it's going to be fine. I'm mostly just worried for next year because, with everything being delayed and stuff, I feel like next year is just going to be a crazy year for DBD. But yeah, if you guys want to let me know what you think about this, I'd love to hear it as well, because, like I said, a lot of people, apparently I feel like I'm like the only person that simply doesn't like these changes. But yeah, so I just kind of want to give my opinion about that. So, alright, I'll see you guys in the next one.